Hello ladies and gents, I hope you're all having a great day and welcome back to another video. Now before I go on with this video, if you hear any shouting in the background of this, it's either the next door's television or a Cantonese family going at one another. I'm unsure which one it is, but hopefully it doesn't interfere too much. Now, I'm actually in Hong Kong and I'm filming this from my hotel room. We've had a pretty hectic 4 or 5 days, an exciting 4 or 5 days, you know, shooting for the tourism board. And I had a bit of free time this evening, so I thought I'd take, you know, a couple of minutes out to make a video showing you why I think the Radial Filter in Lightroom is one of the most powerful tools. I'm going to give you 5 or 6 ways in which I like to use it when I'm editing my photos, and hopefully you'll learn a thing or two as we go through this. So yeah, I actually did try to film this video yesterday, but about 10 minutes into recording, or at least I thought I was recording, the Osmo started shouting at me, you know, saying, turning off in 3, 2, 1. At which point I realised I hadn't filmed anything and I was quite pissed off, so I just decided to go out and shoot. So, you know, perhaps we'll be second time lucky. Or perhaps we'll be lucky a second time round. Yeah. With that said, let's get into the video. Alright, so first up, let's take a look at this picture of Mr. Nengalamuk in one of my favourite villages in East Bali. As you can see, he's making his way down this winding path through a snake fruit farm, and I think there's a couple ways in which we can use the radial filter to really help to make him stand out just a little bit more. So, for those of you who don't know, to access the radial filter, we just go over to the masking panel here. You can see I've already put a couple of masks over this photo. But to get the radial gradient, we're going to hit plus and go to radial gradient right there. So, first things first, I am going to create a customized vignette with this radial filter. Now, of course, if we scroll down, we can create a vignette using, you know, the classic vignette kind of feature here, but it does it quite evenly around all corners. And let's say I don't want my vignette to be affecting this top left corner. Well, that's not possible with this this option right here. So we can create a customized vignette with a radial gradient. So let's bring it over like this. I'll actually create the radial filter, or I'll put it over the image to kind of mimic the shape of the sunlight coming into the frame. Then if I scroll up, all I want to do is invert this mask and bring the exposure down. Let's say to minus 1.2. Okay, great. If I press O, I'll see the area that's affected. Zoom out a little bit. I can perhaps drag that down ever so slightly. You'll notice that this minus 1.2 exposure adjustment is also affecting his legs. So I'm just going to hit minus on the mask, radial gradient again, and I'm going to do it like so. And that way we haven't got that minus adjustment over our subject. So before and after, let's see. So before that radial gradient and after, pretty nice. And another one I'd like to add, and this is just I guess another way in which we're able to highlight our subject by creating some kind of a hazy background to him, is if I press plus, radial gradient, and I drag it over our subject like so. I'm then going to hit minus, select subject. I'm going to bring the exposure up to 0.25. And if we scroll down, I'm going to drag the dehaze down to minus 25. Or minus 20 perhaps. There we go. Now that filter might be a little bit big, but I think there or thereabouts is fine. If I actually zoom in on this guy, you will notice that by using that minus subject option, you know, this is one of the AI features that you're able to use in Lightroom. It hasn't actually done a fantastic job of removing the adjustment from his shorts, the hat, I guess the skin on the arms and all these other areas. I think it's because the tonal range of the arm is quite similar to that of the background. So to adjust that, you'll just want to hit minus, brush, and then spend your time carefully going over each individual part of the subject where it needs removing. But if I save this as a snapshot after and go before and after, before and after, yeah, you're able to see the subject stands out a lot more than it did in the before edit. Okay, moving on to the second shot. Now, a couple of things I'd like to do to this shot with radial filters. One would be to emphasize the light coming in from the right hand side, which is a classic use case of the radial gradient. So if we zoom out a little bit, if I drag this filter over here, I'm going to be careful to, I don't really want to affect these shadows in the dunes. I think they look quite nice as is. Quite nice as is. There we go. I'll move that up to 0.8. And that seems absolutely fine to me. Okay, looks great. Another thing I'd like to do is probably create a customized vignette as I did with the first image. So again, kind of mimicking this shape of and direction of the sun, kind of line it up with the angle of the shadows there. I'm going to invert this adjustment and I'm going to bring the exposure down ever so slightly, maybe to minus 0.7. You'll see that if I hit O again, you'll see that it's affecting the sky. I don't want that, so I can hit minus and select sky. Okay, good. I don't know if I want it running all the way through this part of the image. I mean, I'll leave it for now. This is the thing with edits, it always takes me a number of... Yeah, I can't do these edits in just 5 minutes. It usually takes me a number of hours to land on something I'm perfectly happy with. But I'm going to hit minus radial gradient once more, and I'm just going to select the area around the subject as I don't really want to darken that. I'll move the feathering up to around 60, and that should be great. Okay, so before and after, looking better. Another way, actually, in which I'd like to use a radial filter on this would be to, how can I say this? To remove some clarity from the sand. So as you can see, the subject in our image is actually quite sharp, as is the sand, which I think looks great. But sometimes what I like to do is de-clarify, if that's a real word. I'd like to de-clarify the area around the subject. So the subject's a little bit sharper, got a little more clarity, a little more texture, and the area surrounding it doesn't. That way the subject, again, stands out just a little bit more. Very, very subtle differences that you may not even be able to notice on YouTube, but I figured I should mention it because it's something I do in most of my edits. So again, plus, radial gradient, drag it around our subject, we can invert that, and simply come down to clarity, yeah, maybe just down to minus 10. Let's see, and I think, yeah, it's probably quite okay. Let's see, after. Alright, so pretty happy with this shot. Let us move on to our third and final picture, which is from the Lotus Ponds of North Vietnam, somewhere just outside of Hanoi. And I'm going to show you a few ways in which I like to use the radial gradients to create targeted adjustments. So first things first, if I zoom in on this shot, hopefully you can tell on YouTube, but we've got a pretty nice, or what I think is quite a nice grey colour and tone to the water here. Now if I zoom into the centre of this shot, you'll notice it is slightly yellower. If I bring the saturation, it's currently at a value of 7, if I bring that up to, let's see, 100, and I bring the vibrance up, yeah, you'll see there that we start getting this yellow kind of greeny tone in the water. Now, let me undo those values. I know it's not super obvious right there, but I can tell that there is a yellow-green tone there. I want to have a consistent grey tone throughout that water. I think it's going to look a lot cleaner leading into those yellows and greens in the lotus flowers, the lily pads, whatever you call them. So what I'm going to do is, again, of course, get a radial gradient. I'm going to drag it over this area here. And I'm going to intersect the mask with a colour range. And I'm going to select the colour of the water. Done a pretty good job there. I think if I make it a little bit brighter, maybe 0.2, and I bring the saturation down, you'll see there, as I bring that saturation down, we've now got a fairly consistent tone all the way throughout the water. Maybe we'll leave that at minus 60. If I press O to see the affected area, you'll notice that this large desaturation adjustment that I've made and brightening through the exposure is also affecting some of the lily pads here. So, you know, you could try minus colour range, like so. It's removed some of it from the water, but probably not too much. And there you go, it's done a pretty decent job. And another targeted adjustment I probably make with the radial filter, or the radial gradient here, God, I keep forgetting its official name, would be to add it to this top corner. It seems that some of the lily pads here are fairly desaturated compared to those in the bottom right. So again, radial gradient plus radial gradient, drag it over this area here. I think feathering at 40 is going to be fine. Let's bring that saturation adjustment up until we're happy with the colour of them. yeah, maybe at plus, we'll move it up to plus 30. And then minus color range, and we're going to select the color of the water. It's done an okay job. Again, like not bad, but you know, we can try minus luminance range, but the luminance range of the water is probably similar to that of the lotus. The lotus plants. I can't think of what the bloody hell they're called. Yeah, you'll see there it starts getting a bit messy. So here I'd probably recommend hitting minus, brush, and then slowly working your way through the gaps and the shadows until you are happy with the result. Right, and I guess that just about covers the 4, 5, maybe 6 ways in which I love to use radial gradients to edit my photos in Lightroom. I may have missed a thing or two. If I did, and there's ways in which you like to utilize that gradient in your images and in your editing process, then please feel free to let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, if you learned a thing or two, please feel free to leave a like and comment on this video. And with that said, I look forward to catching you in the next video.